My name is Sandra Anderson, and I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, at my adopted sister's engagement party, my father slapped me across the face in front of 50 guests because I refused to sign over my grandmother's $4.5 million mansion. The slap was so hard my diamond earring flew across the marble floor. Phones recorded everything. But here's what none of them knew. I'm not the charity case they've been calling an embarrassment for 2 years. I'm their biological daughter, the one they lost 18 years ago and replaced with a carefully groomed imposter while I grew up in foster care. And that mansion? It's not just a house. It's a 200-year-old estate worth more than my father's entire company. But I'd found documents, evidence that would destroy them all. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment and tell me, have you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything you thought you knew? And what country are you watching from right now? Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 2 years ago, I was working as a junior accountant in Copenhagen when a lawyer arrived with a DNA test. The Anderson family, one of Stockholm's wealthiest, had been searching for their daughter swapped at birth 18 years earlier. That daughter was me. They'd adopted Victoria when I was 6 months old, raised her as their heir with private schools, Oxford education, everything money could buy. When I appeared, everything fell apart. From the first dinner, I knew I didn't belong. Victoria sat across from me in designer clothes, her smile cold as ice. My mother's first words weren't welcome home, but we'll need to get you proper clothes. My father barely acknowledged me, shaking my hand like a business associate. Only my grandmother, Elsa Anderson, truly welcomed me. She was 90, sharp-minded, powerful. She lived at Björkholm Manor, a Gothic masterpiece on 50 acres. Every weekend she'd tell me the truth others wouldn't say. They resent you, she explained. Victoria has been their daughter for 18 years. You're proof it was all a lie. Over 2 years, I tried everything to fit in. I bought expensive clothes, studied their manners, mimicked Victoria's behavior. But every attempt met cruelty. At a charity gala, I used the wrong fork for my salad. Victoria noticed immediately and announced it loud enough for the entire table to hear. "Oh, Sandra, that's for dessert. Didn't they teach you table manners in Denmark? Or were you too busy with other things?" The women laughed. Polite, tinkling laughter that felt like knives. My mother sighed. "It's not her fault, Victoria. She simply wasn't raised with proper standards." My father said nothing. He just looked at me with disappointment, like I was a failed investment. I learned to expect the comparisons. Victoria speaks 5 languages fluently. Victoria graduated top of her class at Oxford. Victoria knows everyone worth knowing in Stockholm. And you, Sandra? You're still learning which spoon to use. The only escape I had was Björkholm Manor. Every Sunday, I'd drive out to see grandmother. We'd sit in her library, surrounded by centuries of family history, and she'd tell me stories. About my grandfather who built the family fortune during the war. About the real Anderson values, integrity, resilience, loyalty. Values the current generation had forgotten. "This manor will be yours one day," she told me 6 months before she died. "Not because of your blood, though, that matters, but because you're the only one left who understands what it means to build something with your own hands, to earn what you have." "What about Victoria?" I asked. "Victoria understands prices, not value," grandmother said quietly. "She sees assets, not legacy. If I leave this to your parents, they'll give it to her and she'll gut it. Turn it into some modern monstrosity or sell it to the highest bidder. I won't allow that. 3 months ago, grandmother Elsa died. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. She was ready, she said. She'd lived a full life. But she made me promise something before she passed. "Promise me you'll protect this place," she whispered, her hand weak in mine. "Promise me you won't let them take it from you." "I promise," I said. She smiled. "Good girl. You're stronger than they know." Stronger than you know. Don't let them break you. Those were her last words to me. The funeral was a spectacle. Hundreds of people, most of whom barely knew her. My mother wept dramatically. Victoria played the grieving granddaughter perfectly. My father gave a eulogy about family legacy and honoring grandmother's memory. I stood in the back, dry-eyed, angry. They'd barely visited her in her final months. I'd been the one sitting by her bedside, reading to her, holding her hand, and now they were performing grief for an audience. The will reading was scheduled for the following week. The family gathered in my father's study. Expensive leather chairs arranged in a semicircle, a lawyer in a dark suit standing at the front. He opened the envelope and began to read. Small bequests to staff, to charities, to distant relatives. Then he got to the main estate. And I leave Björkholm Manor, along with all its contents, properties, and associated assets, to my granddaughter, Sandra Anderson. The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Then my father exploded. He shot to his feet, his face turning purple. This is impossible. Mother was clearly not in her right mind. Sandra's been in this family for 2 years. 2 years. Victoria has been our daughter for 18. The lawyer remained calm. Mrs. Elsa Anderson was evaluated by 2 independent physicians in the months before her death. She was found to be of completely sound mind. This will is legal, notarized, and uncontestable. My mother's voice was ice. This is a slap in the face to Victoria, to this entire family. We'll challenge it. You're welcome to try, the lawyer said. But I must warn you, Mrs. Anderson was very thorough. There are no grounds for contestation. Victoria sat frozen, her perfect composure cracking. Her hands trembled. Her eyes filled with tears, but they looked more like rage than sadness. I said nothing. I just sat there, absorbing the weight of what grandmother had done. She'd given me the estate, the legacy, the power, and my family would never forgive me for it. The next 8 weeks were warfare. My father called me daily, demanding I reconsider, think of the family, do the right thing. My mother stopped speaking to me entirely, communicating only through icy glances and whispered comments to others when I was in earshot. Victoria launched a social media campaign, posting carefully worded messages about family betrayal and outsiders who take what they don't deserve. Her friends rallied around her. Stockholm's elite began to look at me differently, with suspicion and judgment. I moved into Björkholm Manor despite my parents demanding I stay at the Penthouse until things were sorted. The manor was mine, legally and morally. I wasn't giving it up. But living there, going through grandmother's belongings, I started finding things. Documents hidden in the library, files locked in her desk. And what I discovered made everything make sense. Grandmother had known the truth about my family for years, and she'd been collecting evidence. Tax evasion records, offshore account statements, emails about fraudulent business deals, and most damning of all, documents about Victoria's adoption. Documents that proved she wasn't adopted through legal channels. She was bought. Black market, from a Romanian orphanage, falsified papers, bribed officials. My father had committed international adoption fraud, and grandmother had kept the evidence, waiting for the right moment to use it. Now that moment had come. She'd left it all to me with a note. If they ever try to take what's yours, use this. Protect yourself, Sandra. They're not your family. They're criminals in expensive suits. I made copies, secured them in 3 locations, and contacted a prosecutor, financial investigator, and journalist. I was building a case. Then came Victoria's engagement party invitation. I knew it was a trap, but I had leverage now. Evidence that could destroy them. So I went, ready to end this once and for all. To understand what happened at that engagement party, you need to understand the 2 years of hell that led up to it. 2 years of being treated like a stain on the family reputation. 2 years of watching Victoria bask in praise while I was dismissed as the girl who didn't belong. I grew up with the Jensens, a kind foster family in Copenhagen. They told me my parents died in a car accident. I believed them, lived a normal life, studied accounting, got a good job. Meanwhile, the Andersons had been searching for me for 18 years. When they couldn't find me, they adopted Victoria from what they thought were legitimate channels. They poured everything into her, molding her into the perfect daughter. Grandmother Elsa never fully accepted Victoria. In her diary, she wrote, "Victoria is a performance. Beautiful, accomplished, but hollow. She's playing the role of an Anderson, but she's not one." Grandmother never stopped searching for me. Finally, 18 years later, she found me through a DNA match. When she told my parents, my father's first reaction wasn't joy. It was panic. What do we do about Victoria? That should have told me everything. The press conference was staged. Lost heiress found. But that first dinner revealed the truth. I was judged for my department store dress, my manners, everything. Victoria descended the stairs like royalty, welcoming me with poisonous sweetness. The comparisons never stopped. Victoria speaks 5 languages. Victoria went to Oxford. Victoria knows everyone. I learned to expect cruelty disguised as concern. At a charity gala 2 months later, I wore a dress I'd bought on sale, thinking it looked elegant. Victoria showed up in custom Valentino. When photographers asked for a photo of the Anderson daughters together, Victoria positioned herself in the center, angled her body to make me look smaller, and smiled like a queen. The photo ran in every society magazine. The caption read, "Victoria Anderson and her sister Sandra." Not Sandra and Victoria. Victoria and her sister. Like I was an afterthought. My mother clipped the article and left it on my dresser. "Just so you can see how these things are done," she said. At family dinners, the pattern was always the same. My father would ask Victoria about her week, and she'd have amazing stories. Meetings with diplomats, gallery openings, charity work with famous organizations. Then he'd turn to me. "And you, Sandra? How's the job?" I worked at my accounting firm, doing corporate taxes for mid-sized companies. It was respectable work, important work. But compared to Victoria's glamorous life, it sounded pathetic. "It's fine," I'd say. "We just closed a big account." "That's nice," my mother would say, already turning back to Victoria. I tried to connect with Victoria. Really tried. I suggested we have lunch, just the two of us. Get to know each other as sisters. She agreed, but when I showed up at the restaurant, she brought 3 of her friends. Society women who spent the entire lunch talking about people I didn't know, places I'd never been, inside jokes I didn't understand. I sat there, silent, invisible. When the check came, Victoria looked at me. "You don't mind getting this, do you? You're the one who suggested lunch. It was 400 euros, nearly a week's salary for me. But I paid it because I didn't know what else to do." The cruelty was never obvious enough to call out. It was subtle. Death by 1,000 cuts. Victoria would compliment my dress, then add, "It's so brave that you wear off the rack." I could never pull that off. My mother would mention that I reminded her of a cousin, the one who married poorly and moved to the countryside. Not in a bad way, of course. Just an observation. My father would introduce me to his business associates as our other daughter, with emphasis on other that made it clear I was secondary. The only place I felt safe was Björkholm Manor with grandmother. Every Sunday, I'd escape Stockholm and drive to the estate. Grandmother would be waiting with tea and pastries. We'd sit in the library and she'd tell me stories. Stories about my grandfather, who'd built the family fortune from nothing, who'd survived the war, started with a single property and grew it into an empire through hard work and integrity. Stories about the real Anderson values, not the superficial nonsense my parents cared about, but real values: honesty, loyalty, resilience. "You come from strong stock, Sandra," she'd say. "Don't let them convince you otherwise." She showed me family documents, old photographs, letters, the history Victoria had never cared to learn. "This is your heritage," grandmother said. "Not the money or the mansions. This, the stories, the struggles, the triumphs. This is what makes you an Anderson." I soaked it all in. It was the only connection to my family that felt real. 6 months before she died, grandmother's health started failing. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Terminal. She had maybe 3 months. I spent every free moment with her. Took time off work. Drove to the manor every day. Sat by her bedside, read to her, held her hand. My parents visited twice. Victoria came once, spent 15 minutes, took a selfie for social media with a caption about cherishing family, and left. Grandmother noticed. "They don't come because they love me," she said weakly. "They come because they're waiting for the will." In her final weeks, grandmother had her lawyer draw up documents. She'd been planning this for months, she told me, making sure everything was protected. "I'm leaving you Bjorkholm Manor," she said. "All of it. The house, the land, the contents, everything." "Grandmother, I can't accept that. It's too much." "Yes, you can," she said firmly, "because you're the only one who'll protect it. Victoria would sell it in a heartbeat. Your father would turn it into a hotel. Your mother doesn't care about anything except status. But you, Sandra, you understand what this place means." She gripped my hand with surprising strength. "They're going to fight you on this. They're going to make your life hell. But I need you to promise me you won't give in." "I promise." "Good." She smiled. "Because I have one more thing to tell you. Something you need to know about Victoria." That's when she showed me the adoption files. Victoria wasn't legally adopted. She was purchased. Black market. From a Romanian orphanage that specialized in selling babies to wealthy families across Europe. My father paid 100,000 euros in cash, received falsified documents, bribed officials, brought Victoria to Sweden under fraudulent papers. I stared at the documents, shocked. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because knowledge is power," grandmother said. "And you're going to need power to survive what's coming. When they try to take the manor from you, and they will try, you'll need leverage. This is your leverage. But this is illegal. They could go to prison." "Good," she said coldly. "Maybe they should have thought of that before they committed fraud." Grandmother died 2 weeks later, peaceful, in her sleep, with me holding her hand. The funeral was massive, hundreds of people. My father gave a eulogy about family and legacy. My mother wept dramatically. Victoria wore black Chanel and looked like a grieving angel. I stood in the back, numb, exhausted, grieving the only person who'd truly loved me. The will reading came a week later. When the lawyer announced that I was inheriting Bjorkholm Manor, my father's reaction was immediate and violent. He stood up, shouting that mother was senile, that the will was invalid, that I'd manipulated a sick old woman. My mother's face went white with rage. Victoria didn't cry. She just stared at me with pure hatred. The lawyer stood firm. The will was legal, final, uncontestable. I moved into the manor that same day, refused to stay at the Penthouse even one more night. This was my home now, and that's when the real warfare began. My father called me 20 times a day, demanding I reconsider, threatening legal action, accusing me of elder abuse. My mother turned her friends against me, whisper campaigns at charity events, rumors that I was unstable, greedy, manipulative. Victoria took to social media, carefully worded posts about family betrayal, how some people take advantage of vulnerable elderly relatives, how real family means sacrifice. Her friends rallied. Comments flooded in. Poor Victoria. She's been the devoted granddaughter for 18 years, and this is how she's repaid. I was uninvited from family events, cut out of group messages, erased from the family narrative. But I didn't care anymore, because I was going through grandmother's documents, and I was discovering the full extent of my family's crimes. Tax evasion going back 15 years, 8 million euros hidden in offshore accounts. Shell companies used to launder money, fraudulent real estate deals, bribed inspectors, falsified documents. And at the center of it all, my father, Gregory Anderson, respected businessman, pillar of Stockholm society, criminal. I made copies of everything, stored them in safety deposit boxes in 3 different cities. Reached out to the contacts grandmother had given me, a prosecutor she'd been friends with for 40 years, a financial crimes investigator who specialized in corporate fraud, a journalist who'd won awards for exposing corruption. I was building a case, carefully, methodically, the way I'd been trained as an accountant. And then the invitation came, Victoria's engagement party. I stared at the embossed card, knowing exactly what this was. A trap. One final attempt to humiliate me into submission, to force me to hand over the manor in front of witnesses, making it impossible to refuse without looking heartless. But I had something they didn't know about. Evidence. Leverage. The truth. So I decided to go. Not to give them what they wanted, but to end this, once and for all. I chose a simple black dress, grandmother's diamond earrings, and I walked into that penthouse ready for war, because they'd pushed me too far. And they were about to learn that the quiet girl from Copenhagen was stronger than they ever imagined. The night of Victoria's engagement party, I stood in front of the mirror in Björkholm Manor, fastening grandmother's diamond earrings, and I knew tonight would change everything. The earrings were beautiful, vintage pieces, probably worth 50,000 euros, but their value to me wasn't monetary. Grandmother had given them to me a month before she died. "Wear these when you need to remember who you are," she'd said, her hands trembling as she placed them in my palm. "When they try to make you small, when they try to break you, remember, you're an Anderson, the real kind." I touched them now, feeling their weight, their coolness against my skin. I was ready. The drive to my parents' penthouse took 30 minutes. 30 minutes to prepare myself for what I knew was coming. They'd invited me for a reason. This wasn't about family unity. This was about control. I pulled up to the building, handed my keys to the valet, and walked into the lobby. My hands weren't shaking. My heart was steady. I'd been afraid for 2 years. Tonight, I was done being afraid. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than usual. I watched the numbers climb. 10, 20, 30. The penthouse occupied the entire 40th floor. The doors opened directly into the foyer. The party had already started. I could hear music, laughter, the clink of glasses. I stepped out and was immediately hit by the opulence. White roses everywhere, thousands of them. Ice sculptures in the shape of swans. A string quartet playing Vivaldi. Tables covered in silk linens. Crystal glasses catching the light from 3 massive chandeliers. This wasn't just a party. It was a statement of wealth. A server appeared with champagne. I took a glass, more to have something to hold than because I wanted to drink. Victoria spotted me immediately. She was holding court in the center of the room, surrounded by admirers, wearing an ivory Valentino gown that probably cost more than a car. Her fiancé Henrik Larsson stood beside her. Tall, blonde, handsome in that generic way wealthy men often are. Henrik came from shipping money. His family owned one of the largest freight companies in Scandinavia. This marriage wasn't just about love, though I'm sure they told themselves it was. It was about merging dynasties, creating a power couple that would dominate Stockholm society for decades. Victoria saw me and her smile froze for just a moment. Then it widened, became even more perfect, more fake. Sandra, she called out loudly, you came. Every head turned. 50 guests, all looking at me, judging, assessing, wondering why the black sheep of the Anderson family had been invited. I wouldn't miss your special night, I said, keeping my voice neutral. She glided over, Henrik following. Up close, I could see the calculation in her eyes. You look nice, she said, her tone suggesting the opposite. Is that dress new? It wasn't. I'd worn it to 3 other events because I couldn't afford a new one every time, but I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction. Thank you, I said simply. My mother appeared, wearing diamonds that could fund a hospital wing. Her eyes swept over me, taking in every detail, every flaw. Sandra, she said coolly, try not to embarrass us tonight. This is an important event. I'll do my best, I replied, my voice flat. She leaned in close, her perfume overwhelming. We need to talk. Later. All of us. It's time to resolve this situation with the manor. There it was. The real reason I'd been invited. There's nothing to resolve, I said quietly. The manor is mine. Legally. That's not changing. Her eyes went hard. We'll see about that. She swept away, leaving me standing alone in a sea of people I didn't know and didn't want to know. I moved to the edge of the room, near the windows overlooking Stockholm. The city sparkled below, beautiful and cold. Like this family. Uncle Thomas found me there, my father's younger brother. 50 years old, soft around the middle, always slightly drunk at family events. Sandra, he said, his breath thick with scotch. Still being stubborn about that house, I hear. It's not stubbornness, Uncle Thomas. It's my inheritance. He laughed, the sound bitter. Your inheritance. You've been in this family for 2 minutes. Victoria's been an Anderson her whole life. Don't you think she deserves it more? Grandmother didn't think so. His face darkened. Your grandmother was a bitter old woman who enjoyed causing problems. She pitted you against Victoria on purpose. Or maybe she saw the truth, I said. Maybe she knew exactly who deserved what. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. You're making a mistake. Family is everything. Without us, you're nothing. A nobody accountant from Denmark. Is that really what you want to go back to? I'd rather be a nobody with integrity than somebody without it. He sneered. You'll regret this. Mark my words. He walked away and I was alone again. But not for long. More family members approached. Aunt Clara, my mother's sister. Cousins I barely knew. Friends of my parents. All with the same message, delivered with varying degrees of politeness. Be reasonable. Think of the family. Victoria deserves the manor. You're being selfish. No one asked how I was doing. No one acknowledged that I'd lost the only person in this family who'd loved me. No one cared that I was grieving. They only cared about the money, the property, the asset. At 8:30, the lights dimmed. The quartet stopped playing. My father stepped onto a small raised platform at the front of the room, microphone in hand. The crowd quieted instantly. Gregory Anderson commanded attention. It was one of his gifts. 6 feet tall, silver hair, expensive suit. He looked like power personified. Good evening, everyone, he began, his voice booming through the sound system. Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate the engagement of my beautiful daughter Victoria to Henrik Larsson. Applause. Victoria beamed, waving like royalty. This union represents more than just love, my father continued. It represents the joining of two great families, two legacies, the continuation of traditions that have defined Stockholm society for generations. More applause. Henrik raised Victoria's hand and kissed it. The perfect couple performing for their audience. But tonight, my father's voice shifted, becoming more serious. I also want to address something that's been weighing on this family, a matter that needs resolution. My stomach clenched. Here it comes. As many of you know, his eyes found me in the crowd. My mother recently passed away. Elsa Anderson was a pillar of this family for nearly 7 decades. We all miss her greatly. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. In her will, she left the family estate, Björkholm Manor, to my younger daughter Sandra. All eyes turned to me. I felt their weight, their judgment. Now, Sandra has only been part of our family for 2 years. She had a very different upbringing than what we're accustomed to. And while we've welcomed her with open arms, my voice dripped with false warmth that made my skin crawl. There are some practicalities we need to address. I knew where this was going, but I stood still, refusing to react. Victoria, my father gestured to her, has been raised as an Anderson her entire life. She understands our traditions, our responsibilities, our legacy. She's been groomed to manage properties like Björkholm Manor. She knows its history, its significance. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Perfect performance. Sandra, on the other hand, my father's voice turned almost pitying, is still learning, still adjusting. And frankly, a 200-year-old historic estate is an enormous responsibility, one that requires knowledge, connections, and experience she simply doesn't have. The crowd was nodding now, agreeing with him. Of course, it made sense. Give the estate to the daughter who knows what to do with it. So tonight, my father said, pulling out a document, I'm asking Sandra to do the right thing. To put family first, to sign Björkholm Manor over to Victoria, where it rightfully belongs. The room erupted in applause. People were already celebrating, assuming I'd comply. Because who would dare refuse Gregory Anderson in front of 50 witnesses? My father held out the document and a pen. His smile was confident. He thought he'd backed me into a corner. Thought I'd be too embarrassed to refuse in front of all these people. Henrik stepped forward, his voice smug and entitled. It's really the only fair solution, Sandra. Victoria has been preparing for this responsibility her entire life. You wouldn't even know where to begin. And think about what's best for the family legacy. My mother joined in, her voice softer but no less manipulative. Darling, this is about more than ownership. It's about doing what's right, what your grandmother would have truly wanted if she'd been thinking clearly. Victoria stood there, tears streaming down her perfect face. But I saw it. The flash of triumph in her eyes, the barely concealed smirk. She thought she'd won. Every face in that room was turned toward me, waiting, expecting. I walked forward slowly. The crowd parted. I could hear my heels clicking on the marble floor. The only sound in the room. I reached my father, looked at the document, at the pen, at his expectant face. Then I looked up at him and said clearly, so everyone could hear, no. The word echoed in the sudden silence. What did you say? My father asked, his smile freezing. I said no. I'm not signing your document. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People exchanged shocked glances. Sandra, my father's voice dropped, threatening. Don't embarrass yourself. Sign the document. No, I repeated, louder this time. Björkholm Manor is mine. Grandmother left it to me because she trusted me, because she knew I'd protect it. I'm not handing it over to someone who sees it as nothing more than an asset to sell or renovate. Victoria's face crumpled. She let out a sob that sounded rehearsed. How can you say that? I loved grandmother. I visited her all the time. You visited her twice in the last year of her life? I said coldly. I was there every day. I held her hand when she died. Where were you? Posting selfies on Instagram? The crowd gasped again. This was not how Anderson family drama was supposed to unfold. We were supposed to keep things civil, polite, bury the ugliness under layers of propriety. But I was done with propriety. My mother stepped forward, her voice rising. Sandra, you are being selfish and ungrateful. After everything this family has done for you, everything you've done for me, I turned to her, my voice shaking with rage. You mean the 2 years of making me feel worthless? The constant comparisons? The endless criticism? Being made to feel like an intruder in my own family? We welcomed you, my mother hissed. We gave you opportunities. And this is how you repay us? You welcomed me like a charity case, like someone you had to tolerate because DNA said so. You never wanted me. You wanted Victoria. And now that grandmother chose me over her, you can't handle it. The room was dead silent now. People were filming on their phones. This would be all over social media within the hour. My father's face had gone from red to purple, his jaw clenched, his hand tightened around the microphone. You will sign this document, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You will do as you're told. I'm 32 years old, I said. You don't get to tell me what to do. He stepped closer, towering over me. I am your father. You will respect me. Respect is earned, I said quietly. And you haven't earned mine. That's when it happened. His hand flew out fast and brutal, an open-palmed slap across my left cheek. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. My head snapped to the side. Pain exploded across my face. I tasted blood where my teeth cut into my lip. And I felt it. The diamond earring. Grandmother's earring. Coming loose. Flying off my ear. It hit the marble floor with a delicate tinkling sound and skittered across the room, spinning under the lights. The crowd erupted. Gasps, screams, shocked exclamations. Someone near the back was live streaming. I could see the red dot on their phone. This was being broadcast in real time. My father stood there, breathing hard, his hand still raised, looking almost surprised by what he'd done. My mother clutched her chest, horrified not by the violence but by the public spectacle. Victoria's mouth hung open, her fake tears forgotten. I straightened slowly, touched my throbbing cheek, felt the heat, the swelling already starting. Then I walked across the room, my heels clicking in the silence, and picked up grandmother's earring. The diamond was still perfect, unbroken, like me. I slipped it into my clutch and turned back to face them. All of them. My father, my mother, Victoria. The 50 witnesses who'd just watched a man strike his daughter over money. I looked at Victoria and smiled. Not a friendly smile, a knowing smile. A smile that said, "You have no idea what's coming." "Happy engagement, Victoria," I said softly. Then I walked to the door. The crowd parted like I was diseased. No one tried to stop me. No one said a word. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, shrill and desperate. "Sandra, come back here. You're embarrassing this family." I didn't turn around. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. And I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 2 years. In the lobby, I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline flooding my system. But my mind was clear. I made the first call, to the prosecutor grandmother had connected me with. "It's Sandra Anderson," I said when she answered. "It's time. I'm ready to file charges and share everything I have." "I'm listening," she said. Assault, in front of 50 witnesses, recorded on multiple phones, plus the documents my grandmother left me. Tax evasion, money laundering, fraud. I have everything. "Bring it to my office tomorrow morning," she said. 9 a.m. We'll get started. The second call was to the financial crimes investigator. I have documents proving years of tax evasion by Anderson International Holdings, offshore accounts, shell companies, falsified records. How soon can we meet? Tomorrow afternoon, he said. 2 p.m., bring everything. The third call was to the journalist. I've got a story for you, I said. Corporate fraud, black market adoption, and video of a Stockholm businessman assaulting his daughter in front of witnesses. Interested? Very, she said. When can we talk? I'm free all day tomorrow. The final call was to my lawyer, the best litigation attorney in Stockholm. They just assaulted me, I said. In public, in front of 50 witnesses, multiple recordings. I want charges filed tonight, and I want a restraining order. Consider it done, she said. Are you safe? I'm leaving the building now. Going back to the manor. Lock your doors. Don't answer calls from them. I'll handle everything. I hung up and walked to my car. My face throbbed. My heart pounded. But I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Power. By the time I got back to Björkholm Manor, the video had already gone viral. Someone at the party had posted their live stream. The slap. The earring. My face. My father's rage. The internet had erupted. Disgusting. How can he hit his own daughter over money? This is what wealth does to people. They forget basic humanity. That poor woman. She deserves so much better. The Anderson family should be ashamed. Stockholm's elite showing their true colors. The video had 500,000 views and climbing. News sites were picking it up. Hashtags were trending. Stockholm scandal. Anderson abuse. Justice for Sandra. I sat in grandmother's library, ice pack on my face, and started uploading documents to secure servers. Everything I had. Every piece of evidence. Every crime. By morning, my father's world would start to burn, and by the end of the week, the Anderson name would be destroyed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. We'll destroy you. I deleted it and blocked the number. They thought they could destroy me. They were wrong. I was the one holding all the cards now, and I was about to play every single one. Morning came with a knock on the manor door. I opened it to find my lawyer, Margareta Ström, standing there with a briefcase and a grim smile. The video has 7 million views, she said, walking inside. Your father is trending globally. This is bigger than Stockholm now. This is international. I led her to the library where I'd spent all night organizing documents. Tax records spread across the desk. Adoption files. Offshore account statements. Emails. Years of evidence meticulously catalogued. Margareta's eyes widened as she took it all in. This is enough to put him away for a decade, she said quietly. Multiple charges. Tax evasion alone is 8 million euros. Then there's money laundering, fraud, falsified documents. And the adoption, I said, handing her Victoria's file. She opened it and her expression hardened. Black market adoption. This is international law. Romanian authorities will want to be involved. Good, I said. They should be. At 9 a.m. we met with the prosecutor. Katarina Bergström was in her 50s, sharp-eyed with a reputation for taking down white-collar criminals. She'd been grandmother's friend for 40 years. She watched the assault video 3 times without speaking. Then she looked at me. I'm filing charges today, she said. Assault in front of witnesses with video evidence. Open and shut. But Sandra, I need to prepare you. Your father will fight this. He'll hire the best lawyers money can buy. This will get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. Let it get legal. We spent 2 hours going through documents. Katarina made notes, asked questions, cross-referenced dates and accounts. By the time we finished, she had enough to launch multiple investigations. Anderson International Holdings is going to be frozen, she said. Assets will be seized pending audit. If even half of this is proven, your father won't just lose his business, he'll lose everything. At 2 p.m., I met with the financial crimes investigator. Lars Nystrom specialized in offshore tax evasion. He'd brought down 3 major corporations in the last 5 years. He studied the documents with the focused intensity of a predator spotting prey. Shell companies in the Caymans? He muttered. Falsified invoices? Payments routed through Singapore. This is textbook money laundering. How did your grandmother get all this? She was on the board of several companies, I explained. She had access my father didn't know she had, and she documented everything. Smart woman, Lars said. With this evidence, the Swedish tax authority will have grounds to go after every Anderson property, every account, every investment. He's done. The journalist Anna Lindqvist arrived at 4 p.m. She'd won 2 investigative journalism awards and had a reputation for exposing corruption in Sweden's elite circles. I gave her everything: the assault video, the adoption documents, the tax evasion evidence. She read through the adoption file and her jaw dropped. He bought a baby from a black market orphanage in Romania and falsified her citizenship documents. For 18 years, I said, and the real mother never knew her daughter was alive. Do you know who the mother is? I pulled out the document. Elena Roth. Last known address in Bucharest. Grandmother tried to find her, but couldn't. Anna's eyes lit up. If I can locate her and she tells her story, this becomes global. Human trafficking. International adoption fraud. This will destroy him. That's the idea, I said. She looked at me carefully. You know there's no coming back from this. Once I publish, your family will never forgive you. They already don't, I said. And they're not my family. They're criminals in expensive suits. Over the next 3 days, everything moved fast. Katarina filed assault charges. A warrant was issued for my father's arrest. He was taken into custody at his office, photographed in handcuffs, paraded past news cameras. The image was on every news site within hours. Lars submitted the financial documents to the Swedish tax authority. They launched an immediate investigation and froze all Anderson International Holdings accounts. No transactions, no payroll, no operations. The company ground to a halt overnight. Anna found Elena Roth. It took 2 days of searching through Romanian databases and making calls, but she found her. A 42-year-old woman working in a textile factory in Bucharest who'd been told her baby daughter died during childbirth 18 years ago. Anna called me when she made contact. She had no idea, Anna said, her voice thick with emotion. She's been mourning a child who was alive the entire time, stolen from her and sold to your father. When can she come to Stockholm? I asked. I'm arranging it now. She wants to meet Victoria, her real daughter. I'll cover all expenses, I said. Travel, hotel, legal fees, everything. 3 days after the assault, Anna's article published. The headline was brutal. Stockholm's darkest secret. The Anderson adoption scandal. The article laid out everything. The illegal adoption, the falsified documents, the Romanian mother who'd been lied to, Elena's story, told in heartbreaking detail, and the tax fraud, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, everything. Within hours, it went viral. International news picked it up. CNN, BBC, The Guardian. The Anderson scandal became a global story about wealth, corruption, and how the rich exploit the poor. Stockholm's elite turned on the Andersons immediately. Business partners issued statements distancing themselves. Charity boards removed my mother from membership. Friends stopped calling. Invitations were rescinded. The Andersons had gone from Stockholm royalty to social pariahs in 72 hours. But the real twist came on day 4. The one no one saw coming. I was going through more of grandmother's files when I found a folder I'd missed before, labeled Anderson Legacy Holdings. Inside were stock certificates, legal documents, board meeting minutes, and a letter addressed to me. My dearest Sandra, it began. If you're reading this, I've passed on and you've discovered the truth about your father's criminal activities. Good. Use it to protect yourself. But there's one more thing you need to know. Something I've kept secret for 30 years. Your grandfather and I didn't put all our assets into Anderson International Holdings. We knew your father was reckless, greedy, and couldn't be trusted with the family fortune. So we created a separate entity, Anderson Legacy Holdings, a private investment company completely independent from your father's business. For 3 decades, I've been quietly moving money out of your father's reach and into Legacy Holdings. Real estate, tech stocks, blue chip investments, managed by trustees your father doesn't know exist. It's worth approximately 30 million euros. And it's yours. I've named you CEO in my will. The paperwork is all in the folder. You don't just have the manor, Sandra. You have a fortune, and your father has no idea it exists. Use it well. Build something better than what this family became. With all my love, Grandmother Elsa. I sat back, stunned. 30 million euros. A whole company I'd known nothing about. I called Margareta immediately. Did you know about Anderson Legacy Holdings? I asked. She laughed. I was wondering when you'd find that. Yes, I'm one of the trustees. Your grandmother set it up decades ago precisely to keep the money away from your father. She didn't trust him. Why didn't you tell me? She wanted you to find it yourself, wanted you to understand the full scope of what she was giving you. You're not just inheriting property, Sandra. You're inheriting power. Within a week, I'd taken control of Anderson Legacy Holdings, met with the trustees, reviewed the portfolio, started planning my next moves. I wasn't just the wronged daughter anymore. I was a CEO, wealthy, powerful, untouchable. Meanwhile, my father's world continued to collapse. The tax authority seized Anderson International Holdings assets, bank accounts frozen, properties placed under government control. The company declared bankruptcy. Liquidation proceedings began. My father was denied bail. Too much money, too many international connections, too high a flight risk. He was remanded to custody pending trial. Victoria's life fell apart in parallel. Henrik Larsson called off the engagement. His family released a statement. The Larsson family cannot associate with individuals involved in criminal activity. We wish Victoria well, but we must protect our reputation. Translation: Victoria was toxic now, unmarriageable. My mother's social world evaporated. Her charity board positions revoked. Her friends stopped returning calls. The women who'd lunched with her for 20 years suddenly had full calendars. The stress broke her. She had a complete mental collapse, paranoid episodes, crying fits, inability to function. She was admitted to a private psychiatric facility. And Victoria? The deportation order came faster than anyone expected. Swedish immigration authorities reviewed her citizenship status. Because her adoption was illegal and her documents fraudulent, her Swedish citizenship was invalid. She was legally still Romanian, a citizen of a country she'd never lived in. The deportation hearing was brutal. Victoria's lawyers argued she was a victim, that she'd had no idea about the illegal adoption. But the prosecutors presented evidence that at 25, when applying for an international work visa, she'd discovered discrepancies in her birth records. Instead of coming forward, she'd helped my father create more false documents. She was complicit. The court ruled against her. Deportation to Romania within 60 days. That's when Elena Roth arrived in Stockholm. I picked her up from the airport myself. She was a small woman, thin from years of hard work, with sad eyes and Victoria's face. The resemblance was striking. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said in accented English. "I never thought I would see my daughter." I arranged a hotel, gave her time to rest, and then asked if she wanted to meet Victoria. She did. The meeting happened in Margareta's office, neutral territory. Victoria sat on one side of the table, Elena on the other. I sat quietly in the corner, watching. Elena stared at Victoria, tears streaming down her face. "They told me you died," she said. "I held you for 10 minutes after birth. Then they took you away and said you couldn't breathe. That you died. I believed them. I mourned you for 18 years. Victoria said nothing. She looked pale, shaken, cornered. "And all this time," Elena continued, "you were alive, living in luxury, going to expensive schools, wearing designer clothes, while I worked in factories trying to survive. Did you know about me?" Victoria's silence was answer enough. "You knew," Elena said, her voice breaking. "When you found out, you knew I existed. And you did nothing. You cared more about money than your own mother." "I'm sorry," Victoria whispered. "Sorry?" Elena stood up, her voice rising. "Sorry doesn't give me back 18 years. Sorry doesn't heal the grief. You are my daughter by blood, but you are not my daughter by choice. You are what they made you. And I want nothing to do with you." She walked out. Victoria sat there crying real tears for the first time I'd ever seen. I stood to leave. Victoria looked up at me. "This was you," she said. "You destroyed everything." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure you faced the consequences." The trial happened 6 months later. My father was charged with tax evasion, money laundering, fraud, international adoption fraud, and assault. The evidence was overwhelming. He pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. 8 years in federal prison. All assets forfeited to cover unpaid taxes and penalties. Victoria pleaded guilty to fraud and document falsification. 3 years in Romanian prison to be served after deportation. My mother was declared mentally incompetent to stand trial. She remained in the psychiatric facility, her mind broken beyond repair. And me? I used the 30 million from Anderson Legacy Holdings to start my own investment firm, focused on ethical businesses, transparent accounting, fair practices. Everything my father's company wasn't. Within a year, I'd made my first major acquisition and turned a €5 million profit. Forbes ran a feature, Sandra Anderson, From Scandal to Success. I hired Elena Roth as my executive assistant. She was smart, hardworking, and deserved a second chance. She became one of my most trusted advisors. I reconnected with my foster family in Denmark, bought them a house, set up their retirement fund. They were my real family, the ones who'd raised me with love. And Björkholm Manor? I restored it to its former glory, opened parts of it to the public as a museum, honoring grandmother's memory and the real Anderson legacy. I'd won. Completely. Utterly. Irreversibly. And the best part? I'd done it legally. Ethically. With evidence and truth. They'd tried to break me. Instead, I broke them. 1 year after the assault, I stood in the library of Björkholm Manor surrounded by everything grandmother had built, and I barely recognized my life. The manor was mine. Truly. Finally mine. Not just legally, but emotionally. I'd spent months restoring it, honoring every detail grandmother had loved while adding my own touches. The gardens bloomed with new flowers. The paintings had been professionally cleaned. The library held both ancient first editions and new books on business, technology, and ethics. This wasn't a museum of the past. It was a living testament to what the Anderson legacy could be when built on integrity instead of fraud. My company, Anderson Legacy Partners, had offices in Stockholm's financial district. 20 employees, portfolio worth €50 million. We specialized in funding women-led startups and ethical businesses, companies that treated employees fairly, paid their taxes, and contributed to society. Last quarter, we'd posted $7 million in profit. Forbes had named me one of Europe's 30 under 35 most influential entrepreneurs. The girl they'd called a country bumpkin was now reshaping Stockholm's business landscape. But the real victory wasn't the money or the recognition. It was the family I'd built. Elena Roth had become like a second mother to me. She worked as my right hand, learning Swedish, learning business, becoming indispensable. We'd bonded over shared loss and found something stronger than blood. "You gave me my life back," she told me one evening as we worked late at the office. "When they took my daughter, I lost myself. You helped me find both." The Jensens, my foster family from Denmark, visited every month. I'd bought them a house near the water, set up trust funds for their retirement. They'd given me something my biological family never had: unconditional love. At a dinner one Sunday, Mrs. Jensen held my hand. "We always knew you'd do something special," she said. "Not because of money or success, because of who you are. Kind, strong, good." "That's what you taught me," I replied, tears in my eyes. I'd also built a circle of real friends, other entrepreneurs, women who'd fought their way up through male-dominated industries, people who understood that success meant nothing if you sold your soul for it. As for the Andersons, the fallout was complete and permanent. My father served 2 years of his sentence before dying of a heart attack in prison, 60 years old, dead in a cell, disgraced and alone. I didn't attend his funeral. Neither did anyone else from Stockholm's elite. He was buried in an unmarked grave with only a priest present. I felt nothing when I heard. Not sadness, not vindication, just emptiness where a father should have been. Victoria served her full 3 years in Romanian prison. After release, she tried to build a life in Bucharest, but her past followed her. No one wanted to hire the girl from the adoption scandal. Last I heard, she was working in a call center, living in a tiny apartment, surviving but not thriving. Elena had tried to reach out once, hoping to build a relationship with her biological daughter. Victoria refused the meeting, sent back a message blaming Elena for ruining everything by coming forward. "She's not my daughter anymore," Elena said sadly. "She's what they made her. Entitled, bitter, unable to take responsibility. I can't fix that." "I don't think anyone can," I agreed. My mother remained in the psychiatric facility. I paid for her care, not out of love, but out of obligation. She'd lost touch with reality completely. The doctors said her mind had fractured under the weight of losing everything she'd built her identity around. I visited her once. Just once. She didn't recognize me. She sat by a window, humming a lullaby, talking to people who weren't there. I stood in the doorway for 5 minutes, then left. There was nothing there to save. The rest of Stockholm's elite had moved on quickly. Uncle Thomas lost his position at a financial firm when his association with my father became a liability. Aunt Clara's social standing evaporated. Cousins who'd sneered at me were suddenly interested in reconnecting. I ignored every message. The Anderson name, once synonymous with power and prestige, was now toxic. A cautionary tale. A reminder of what happens when greed and fraud masquerade as success. But I'd reclaimed it. Sandra Anderson now meant something different: integrity, resilience, justice. On the anniversary of grandmother's death, I held a small memorial at Björkholm Manor. Not a grand event, just the people who mattered. Elena, the Jensens, Margareta, a few close friends. We planted a white birch tree in the garden, grandmother's favorite. As I dug my hands into the soil, I felt her presence. Not literally, but in the legacy she'd left me. Not the money or the property, but the strength to be myself unapologetically. That evening, I sat in the library with grandmother's diary. I'd read it dozens of times, but I returned to the last page often. "Sandra, my darling girl," she'd written. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. But I'm not worried. You have something this family lost generations ago: a soul. You'll be tempted to forgive, to reconcile, to believe blood is thicker than betrayal. Don't. Some people are toxic not because they don't know better, but because they don't want to be better. Protect yourself. Build a life worthy of your integrity. And remember, the best revenge is living well. I closed the diary, tears streaming down my face. Not from sadness, but from gratitude. She'd given me everything I needed. Not just wealth, but wisdom. Not just inheritance, but a blueprint for living. I'd lost a biological family, but I'd gained something infinitely better: freedom, purpose, and the family I chose. Looking back, I don't regret refusing to sign that document. I don't regret walking out of that party. I don't regret pressing charges or exposing the truth. Because here's what I learned: you don't owe loyalty to people who've never earned it. Blood doesn't excuse cruelty, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. My father thought he could control me with violence. My mother thought shame would break me. Victoria thought I'd always be beneath her. They were all wrong. The manor they tried to steal became the foundation of my new life. The scandal they tried to bury freed me from their lies. The inheritance they said I didn't deserve, I proved I was the only one worthy of. I built a business based on the values they'd abandoned. I created a family from people who chose to love me. I turned their cruelty into my catalyst. And when they finally realized what they'd lost, I didn't look back. Today, I sit in board meetings with Sweden's most powerful CEOs. I make decisions that affect hundreds of employees. I invest in companies that change lives. I am successful not despite my past, but because of it. Every moment of humiliation taught me empathy. Every comparison taught me my worth wasn't defined by others. Every cruel word made me stronger. I am Sandra Anderson, not the Sandra they wanted me to be. The Sandra I chose to become. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, dismissed, underestimated, or unloved, know this: you are not defined by people who fail to see your worth. You define yourself. Walk away from toxicity. Build boundaries. Choose the family that chooses you. And when they finally realize what they've lost, don't look back. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members? How did you rebuild afterward? Share your story in the comments. And if this resonated with you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be. And trust me, nothing scares toxic people more than your success. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, you are stronger than you know. Your worth is not determined by those who can't see it. And your future is yours to build, no matter what your past looked like. Choose yourself. Always.